Hello and welcome everybody to SI session number 1. We're going to go over valid arguments for philosophy of logic, which is Phil 8. I'm Marian Hanna and I'm your supplementary instructor for this quarter, and I'm a 4th year philosophy major. Okay, so what are arguments? So pretty much arguments are not people just like yelling, going back and forth at each other. You're presenting reasons for the claims that you want to make. And so in an argument, there are premises and there are conclusions. So the premises are the reasons that you have for the conclusion that you want to make. Okay, well, what are valid arguments? So the definition that's in the book is if and only if it is impossible for all the premises to be true and the conclusion false. What does this really mean? Is that if all the premises were true, then the conclusion has to be true, or would be true as well, right? So if I present you with 3 premises and they all happen to be true, then the conclusion has to be true from those premises, and that would make it a valid argument. So in order to really see what I'm talking about, it's really helpful to go look at examples and then go back and review this definition. Okay, so let's see. Is this a valid argument? Oranges are either fruits or musical instruments. Oranges are not fruits. Oranges are musical instruments. So the numbering here, pay close attention to it. You got 1, 2, and then a C. So C just means conclusion, and then the numbered part is just the premises of the argument. Okay, so if it were true that oranges are either fruits or musical instruments, then okay, so let's accept that. We have to accept that. Let's assume that's the case. Oranges are either fruits or musical instruments. We only have 2 options. Okay, well, we rule out one option. Oranges are not fruits. So what we're left with is oranges are musical instruments. Is this a valid argument? Yes, because it took care of one of the 2 things that it told you it is. So if it's not one of them, then it just has to be the other. Okay, so it's either this one or that one, right? You'll get a lot more of the hang of it as we go through more examples, and later on in the course when you go, and we're going to look at specific notation for showing these things, so don't worry if you didn't get it. This is just kind of to get your mind thinking about it in general. Okay, let's try this one now. Okay, so London is in England, Beijing is in China, therefore Paris is in France. So unlike the previous example, these premises and the conclusion are actually true. So, when we say oranges are either fruits or musical instruments, clearly they're not musical instruments, and the fact that we rule out that they're fruits is not actually true. But that's not what we're worried about when we're looking at valid arguments. We're looking at the structure itself. So in this example, these are all facts, right? London is in England, Beijing is in China. But do we necessarily have to get, because of these 2 premises, the fact that Paris is in France? Well, not necessarily, right? So Paris can form its own republic or state or whatever country, and London would still be in England and Beijing would still be in China. Those 2 premises can still be true, while Paris is completely separate from France. So the fact that London is in England and Beijing is in China does not lead us to necessarily say, okay, well, Paris is also in France, right? It's 2 separate things. And that's what we're looking at in valid arguments. Do the premises necessarily follow from does the conclusion, so therefore Paris is in France, come from the premises that we're looking at? Okay, let's try this one. In January 1997, it rained in London. In 1998, it rained in London. In January 1999, it rained in London. January 2000, it rained in London. Therefore, it rains every January in London. Okay, well, what about this one? Can't we say that it's a valid argument? Be careful, okay? So it might be true. So it is true, like, sure, it's true that it did rain all of these years, So, we should conclude that it rains every January. Well, not necessarily, because there could be a possibility of it not raining in London on January the following year, right? Why does it have to be the case that just because it rained in the past that it's going to necessarily rain in the future? It might be highly probable that it's going to rain if it's been raining for even longer. Let's extend it out. It's been raining since 1990, and so forth, right? It's been raining since the beginning of time, so it's very likely that it's going to continue on raining. But that's not what we're looking at in this course. That doesn't make it an airtight argument, an airtight, valid, deductive argument. And so the fact that it's been raining doesn't lead us to say anything about the state that it's going to rain every single January in London. There is a high probability that it will, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% going to keep on raining. Okay, so some key things to remember. Remember that valid arguments don't actually have to be true of the world, right? We can literally make up stuff, but as long as the structure is there, and we assume to be true, then it's a valid argument, okay? And this was the hardest thing for me to really wrap my mind around. So don't worry if you're not getting it right away. Just take your time with it, keep looking at different examples, and the more you practice, the better you'll get. And so I'm going to have a worksheet that I'm going to post. So be a lookout for that email, as well as the answers for it when you come to office hours. So pretty much today we have office hours at 11, and go under the supplementary instructor tab and check that link. But just don't forget that the philosophical definition for validity is pretty much what we're looking at for this entire course. So if you don't get it right away, don't worry, just keep looking at examples and it'll slowly start to connect and slowly start to make sense. Okay, don't forget, just session today from 11 to 11:50, I have a worksheet that you can work on and we can go over the answers. Or if you have any questions about this video, please comment below. And I look forward to this quarter. Thank you.